Hello, believers! This is Kyo Kusagani bringing in another dazzling performance roughly 2 months in the making. It's expansive, it's dramatic, and its songstress made a ruckus. It's Super Spacefortress Macross. I estimate I picked this game up around 2017 after Thunder Dragon's sound emulation was fixed, then stopped after I hit a skill roadblock in Loop 2, stages 5 and 6. Only to revisit it in 2023 for old time's sake to take home the gold. A lot of people have different ideas of what makes a good anime license game, but I think everyone will agree it should get you interested in the work represented outside its original form. Up until I played the 2 arcade games, I had a passing interest in Macross, knowing it was a cultural artifact of Japan, like Gundam and Mazinger Z before it. Then, when I tucked in for the night, contemplating what I just played, I realized Macross absolutely kicked ass, and it was a space opera that was way deeper than it appeared to be on the surface, and a little bit less kinky than one would imagine. That's inherent when the whole idea is based off of pop culture and idols and whatnot. And then they threw in a bunch of space battles in order to keep morale up. I guess the morale they were trying to go for here is that entertainment matters after all, even if some of us are a little bit jaded by it these days. Anywho, as for this game itself, this game does a wonderful job encapsulating the excitement of all these space battles, recreating the entire anime episode by episode. This is the first attack on Earth once we discovered the Super Spacefortress Macross, and likewise we're taking out some of their initial invasion fleet. Indeed, and there's not a single Aerosmith fraud in sight, flanker. I probably should have put chat up because I am live reacting to chat here, but it's okay. Let's get right back to prescribing the plot and the gameplay. NMK had their first crack at shoot-em-ups with Thunder Dragon in 1991. Thunder Dragon was Bombfest 91, because it was unlike the direction shmups were going in at the time. Top Plan were pushing for smaller hitboxes and more leniency in dodging fancier and deadlier looking patterns. Thunder Dragon said, fuck all of that, you're gonna bomb and you're gonna love the fireworks. But they realized they hit the pinnacle of that design after they released Thunder Dragon. So this is pretty much just better Thunder Dragon 1. It recycles the same engine and it has a lot of the same rules as Thunder Dragon 1. Only your hitbox is considerably smaller and fairer. That applies to these ice shards that are worth a fair amount of points if you've got the laser weapon. There are hidden medals to collect all over the place, and just like Thunder Dragon, they are quintessential to your survival. Just shooting random parts of the scenery or nothing at all will reveal secret medals for you that are more than just score. You want to pick up 8 of these medals without dying, because that earns you an extra hit point. You get, your vehicle becomes armored once you collect the A icon, and that always spawns once you collect 10 of these bad boys. There are some spots where you get the armor just to make you aware that it exists, but discovering the point item's true function is quintessential to your survival. Unlike many other shmups of this genre, the extra hit points that you can continuously get make this rather forgiving if you're going for a one-loop clear. I suspect they wanted to give extra value to expert players, so they threw in the extra loop and made that mandatory to finish. The location test version of this game is not dumped yet, so I'm not sure if this is originally supposed to be endless or just a one-loop game. But aside from the medals that give you armor, you also have higher value limbs and fish heads that give you 500,000 points a pop. The one in the first stage was located on the left, and they're usually on the far left and far right sections of the screen, although sometimes they like to hide them inside of buildings and whatnot. You can memorize the locations just by watching the replay because I pick up all of them. And as for your weapon selection, that too is a staple of good shoot-em-ups. You have 4 different weapons that you can choose from, and they all serve different purposes. But when you're armored, you have this spread shot with a piercing missile that is pretty much good for the entire game. You do not need to use any of the other weapons if you're armored. But if you're unarmored, you want to tactically switch it up to whatever you deem most appropriate at the time. The fighter, the F, is your standard spread shot that you'd see in Raiden and whatnot. The G, for Jurwalk, fires a gigantic laser out of your cockpit, and that's really ideal for dealing with bosses and not stages. In fact, the Jurwalk is actually more powerful than your armor, should you find yourself unarmored. The Batroid fires homing missiles out that, in all honesty, create a distracting green glow, so I don't prefer it over standard fighter. The missiles are more powerful, but you get less of a spread from them. Plus, you have the missiles themselves being a little bit distracting, in my honest opinion. And then you have the armor weapon itself, which I covered earlier. Anywho, you're also granted bombs for every 5 medals you pick up as well, and you want to stockpile them for the last stage. You're still given plenty of leniency to use them in emergency situations, and there is one instance in which we want to use it to gain 1,000,000 points. Kamakoda says, you hate the visual distraction of Batroid mode, Jurwalk is great. Yeah. Ideally, you'd want to switch to Jurwalk for certain bosses. Like, you can actually kill the last boss way faster if you got Jurwalk and ignore the homing projectiles should you have it. But you're not likely going to have the luxury of that, because if you die, you get reset to standard fighter. And die I did in the last stage. Spoiler alert. As we make our way over to Mars and we burn up on re-entry, I shall now explain the differences between the 2 characters in this game. You get to pick 2 of the anime's main protagonists. I'm playing as Hikaru, the main star of the show, on the left. And if you put a coin on the player 2 side, you play as Maximilian instead. And there are differences between the 2. Hikaru is slower, and that allows him to do more precise dodges, while Maximilian is faster, and therefore is more ideal for scoring. That's simply how a lot of these old school shmups did character selection back then. It is a pretty meaningful choice, and I was better with the slower and more precise character. It's all a matter of personal preference, and it won't make too much of a difference unless you're absolute world record level. So feel free to pick the one that suits your personal taste best. This is a trait that would go on to every other NMK game, like Gunnail for instance, where there were always practical differences between player 1 and player 2. Here's the first time they give you armor for free, and the introduction of the suicide bullets. And this is why I deemed Macross such a cool battleground. The wide variety of environments you fly through, with the scale of the alien invasion represented at hand, meant that, I needed to go check this shit out immediately. And I did not regret it. I also like how they just completely skipped releasing this game as Robotech and just released it as Macross over here. Suck it, Harmony Gold, suck it. We don't need them anymore now that Macross has just directly been released on DVD around here. As for Macross 2, that is one of the instances where the game adaptation is better than the anime itself. They showcased all the best parts of the game itself, whereas the anime itself dragged on for quite a long while. Sometimes that's how it be. Want to pay special attention to the triangular ships being flung your way here, because the laser can still injure you even when you're bombing. Certain projectiles in this game will injure you anyway, even if you're immune to standard bullets. Your bomb is not a be-all savior for everything. And this is the only instance where the secret is not flat on the left or right side of the screen. The secret tuna fish head in this stage is in the middle of all of those mechs, right at the end of the stage. This guy over here will become important in the next stage. You only get a measly 50,000 points for killing him here. But in the next stage, he is going to be your ticket to a high score and a 1-up. There will also be spoilers for the anime here, of course, so I will hold my breath until the next level. Macross 2 is also a very good adaptation, but Mark from the Electric Underground strongly recommends the Super Nintendo game, and I'd say either this or the Super Nintendo Macross are the best Macross games released. Macross is very blessed when it comes to games, unlike Naruto and Dragon Ball, where, due to their higher popularity, they naturally get a bit more shovelware. Moment of silence for Roy Fokker, by the way, who bravely took 3 bullets in the back in order to preserve Hikaru's life. Obviously, it was not that anticlimactic in the anime itself. I just find it really impressive how NMK were able to recreate all the major battles from the show scene from scene. Although, since cutscenes weren't a major deal at the time, Kamatoda gave us a correction here. That was not Roy Fokker. I always think of Roy Fokker's iconic death scene when it came to that, because that was a humongous deal in 1984, according to everyone that watched it back then. He took 3 bullets in the back, and that broke so many animation taboos here in the United States at the time. Like, having one of the main characters outright die did traumatize any kid that watched it, and the effect is comparable to Optimus Prime's first death. Of course, the difference between Macross and Transformers is that they had the integrity to keep Roy actually dead for the rest of the series. And then they left things to their ancestors in, successors in Macross Plus. Well, let's not pull an irate gamer here. Of course, this is our return to Earth halfway through the anime, and now we're going to avenge Hayao Miyazaki's death. I horribly mispronounced it. This is where I'm going to bomb, and you want to kill this guy as efficiently as possible. Because look at my score! That's 500,000 points I got from that. You get subjected to cool parallax scrolling on the way to the boss as well. Here is a scoring trick that's not well documented. It fires circular laser beams that you need to evade when you park yourself to the left or the right. But you can actually destroy the generators of these beams. We're seeing some of that old NMK jank here. Like, as long as I keep shooting, I should get the points for it. Like, right there. I just got about 10,000 for destroying an invisible laser generator. It just has enough health that it's not noticeable at first. Programming is really funkadooky sometimes. So if you want to maximize your score here, you'd have to count out how long it is until a boss times out, and then leech the points out here respectfully. You can probably get an extra 100,000 every loop, but I need to narrow it down with some exact science in the future. Rack says, Optimus' death confused you more than anything. Why does a dead robot turn gray? That's weird because they did the same thing with Ash Ketchum when he almost died in the Pokemon anime. Mewtwo is doing us all a favor when he killed Ash Ketchum. Anyway, this is the hardest stage in the game execution-wise. You want to make sure you stay away from all the frontal guns. And another thing to take note of is that when you lose your armor, you're given an extra bomb, so you can tactically use that to your advantage if you're not going for score. If there's a second armor pickup on the screen, you can get yourself a free bomb and get yourself an extra safety net, which is something I abuse in Loop 2 rather than cashing in the points. And this right here is the small hitboxes on display. That was one of my more brilliant dodges in this run. and I am still quite proud of how that looks in the replay playback. Anime characters definitely have a tendency to act robotic at times, but the human mind is a very complex thing, Curio. We tend to have oblivion NPC moments when we least expect it, depending on what our personal tastes are. So sometimes traumatic emotional outbursts are fitting for the occasions. Anyway, this is the whole reason why this stage is hard, is that you do have to conserve some bombs for the forced bomb spam section that's coming out next. They couldn't resist the urge to have a big old 4th of July parade after all. This boss right here you want to kill as quickly as possible. The entrance to the mothership is what inspired the entry in Gradius 2. You break down the entry barrier and go into the mothership in order to destroy the commander once and for all. And it's a giant bunghole. What else do you expect? It's a giant bunghole that's floating over Earth. And thus, the aliens are all mooning us at once. We can't have that immediately. I do consider myself a gentleman and an educated scholar of games. Right. The next level is absolute ass or absolute genius, depending on who you ask. Here, we have to put all of our bombs to good use, because they throw waves upon waves of undodgeable enemies that shoot aimed bullets at you in a circular motion at once. You might be able to deal with some of these if you have the Batroid missiles, but you're very, very unlikely to survive if you run out of bombs here. Some of these enemies actually have armor and bomb power-ups built onto them that once you're through Bomb Fest 1993, you are going to be very, very thankful for in the end. Bomb Fest 93, Bomb Fest 92. It begins right here when you're in the Mushroom Kingdom. Here, don't even think about trying to dodge these. Just bomb them immediately and focus your attention on grabbing medals and dodging bullets as long as possible. Once you run into a corner like this, then press the bomb button. I have not seen any strategy to do this bombless whatsoever, and this is an NMK speciality, if you will. I have fortunately had enough bombs to carry me through to the end of the section. That was the last wave. And then the big robots here spawn an extra armor for you so you can survive the rest of the level. This is also about the time where I die as well. And this is where we'll talk about one-ups. One-ups in this game are interesting because they're all predetermined and they're only in Loop 1. They are spawned when you fulfill certain conditions and your lives are below 5. That also counters out the arcade operator jacking the lives up to make the game easier. They had a preconceived difficulty set in mind, so setting your lives up to 5 only does so much because once you're that high, it no longer spawns extra lives. So if anyone ever has over 5 lives at any given point in this game, they are straight up cheating, and that's how you can tell. They straight up use the infinite lives tree if it reads anything above 4. And this is such a place where they spawn an extra life. You always get an extra life at the end of if you blow up the red dude in stage 5, and you always get an extra life here at the end of Loop 1, provided you have less than 5 lives like I mentioned earlier. This pattern looks very scary, but it's not so bad once you know what the game expects out of you. There's a wall of flesh between you and an invader Zim. So what you want to do is move out of the way the second you press the fire button. And then when the blue balls are thrown at your face, you park yourself in the bottom left or the bottom right hand corner. So that was my fault right there. I made an honest to goodness mistake. But that's okay, because I still have more than enough lives to finish the game out should I die in this area again in the second loop. This goes on until you either time out the boss or you manage to get enough shots in. Again, you lose out on points if you time out the boss, and there's the final shot that gets the kill. Onwards to Loop 2. Loop 2 in this game is not too much different from Loop 1. All of the strategies and all of the patterns are the same, but all of the bullets are going at double speed. And most of the big enemies now shoot suicide bullets at you. Your metal value and your power-up level are carried over from Loop 1, but you no longer get predetermined extra lives. Thus, this is basically a matter of endurance and being able to react to things faster. I ran into the roadblock back in 2017, just because I wasn't as good at shoot-em-ups back then. I wasn't used to paying attention what I had to watch after. Alright, I would recommend the original Mobile Suit Gundam the most if you want to get into realistic robot shows. They really cannot be compared with one another. Macross and Mobile Suit Gundam are more about the human pilots just as much as the epic battles themselves. The epic battles, highlight the costs of war and why wars sometimes had to be fought in human civilization. And Macross is more about, pushing out with optimism through really rough times. And then Mobile Suit Gundam is about the horrors and the dangers that war inflicts on things. Whereas Go Nagai's Mazinger Z, which got released on Arcade Classics Archive, is pretty much just a showpiece for some of the coolest designs that the man put out humanly imaginable. His Super Robot shows are more on the whimsical side rather than the storytelling side of things. He never intended for Mazinger Z to be a serious statement, whereas Macross is more of a genuine storytelling effort. Pick what you think is most appealing from the plots of Gnosis and what genre it falls into, and you'll do okay. Like, an Amuro Ray is just as iconic as the Gundam suit itself is. And that's why I say Hikaru and Lin Minmei, the singer, are quintessential to Macross. They would not have the same identity without them. Likewise, just be insanely careful here that you're always moving. Follow the rule of thumb that was established in Shibukai Hatsu's Raiden. Keep on moving left and right, and you'll be able to dodge most of the aimed bullets, but due to the vertical screen orientation and the fact not too many sniper tanks show up here, you won't have too much difficulty reacting to things that are shot from above you. Raiden has a really nasty tendency to spawn things on the very left and right hand side of the screen to get quick and easy kills on you. But here, due to the fact they've placed the enemies fairly most of the time, you'll have a good amount of time to react to everything. And you're even given some invulnerability frames for enemies that come from behind. You're given about 1.5 seconds to react to anything that comes from behind before the hit detection is turned on. Very similar to Thunder Dragon 2, if I may chime in.
Pardon the slight change in voice. I'm back, on a different microphone, now in pre-recorded form. This is around the point where I sputtered and puttered out on my live commentary, so I decided to finish all of it in post-editing. Just like my Parodius 1cc from a couple of months ago. Although it's not entirely the same. For Parodius, I decided to heavily script the rest of the video after the cutoff point in order to keep my thoughts related to the game as strictly as possible. Here, I decided to make my voice an extension of the commentary, speaking from the heart and not relying on scripts unless I had trouble pronouncing a word or sentence. After all, this isn't the most formal presentation in the world. I veered off and I talked about interesting subjects whenever chat brought them up, so why should this be any different? There was a lot of behind-the-scenes commotion between the Prehistoric Isle 2 video and this super play. It's only fair to keep you all informed whenever something happens. A Call of Duty player attempted to hijack my computer while I was playing Black Ops 3 on June 14th. I wish I was making that up. Apparently, older Call of Duties don't check how big the data transfers are whenever it checks to see if you're connected through Steam. My game locked up and got ejected to a loading screen, at which point I knew something was amok. I immediately pulled the power plug on my PC before the hacker could inflict any damage, so their attack failed. However, I couldn't be too careful. I decided to reset my Windows installation just in case he put anything on my computer. Better safe than sorry, after all. I'm smart and I back up all of my projects, so I didn't lose too much. But I was set back 4 days on my Rail Chase and Double Dragon reviews. The worst damage was to this commentary, which all of it just went straight down the toilet and I had to redo it all. So I decided not to bother with a script this time. Nothing stops me from finishing a project once I start it, even if it takes me more than a month. But the experience left me with a cynical outlook on my hobby for a while. Doubly so since Call of Duty used to be the centerpiece of youth culture in the USA throughout 2009, love it or hate it. Making excellent games like Macross here more of an enigma of how they even happened in the first place. That whole fiasco spurred me to think back several dozen years ago when I was only 7, and how it ties to arcade games. Many North American arcades in the late 80s to early 2000s had redemption games. These flashy, oversized, not gambling machines that had Simpsons or Ninja Turtles tacked onto them to tempt you to spend your quarters. You'd try to drop a golf ball in Michelangelo's mouth or whatever, and it would spew out 4 tickets. But psych, you need 10,000 to get the Game Boy on the wall. It was gambling exempt from its legal definition. At that point, I realized, oh shit, I had my nostalgia glasses on. The 90s were filled with wannabe scam games too. And Sonic the Hedgehog was plastered on one of them. You rolled a coin down and you hoped that the coin touched the light with the jackpot on it, and it was stupidly random. I completely forgot about them until I started working on this video. Meanwhile, all the amazing games that defined the decade on Mega Drive and Super Nintendo come to my mind every other day, and I often plop them in for fun and to revel in the good memories. I think that speaks volumes about the merits of quality. That applies to everything I played in the shoot-'em-up genre from all ages ever since I started this YouTube channel, including my favorite Rising game of all time, Kingdom Grand Prix. One day I didn't know about it, the next I'm flexing my big barbarian muscles, battering everything out of my way like the ram I am. Whether it be due to genuine artistic merit, a desire to stick out, hello UPL, or one's ego not permitting anything but perfection, I firmly believe quality can pay off big. Big West could have been breathing down Banpresto's neck to ensure the game retained high quality to make Macross look as good as possible. The details are lost to time, but it's likely. That's going to apply to all the games popular today. Kids are going to be talking up Elden Ring and Fortnite as games that stood out in a mountain of titles. I pondered the purpose of my reviews, seeing how many people were complacent to continue playing Black Ops 3 after news broke out it was hacked. And I found it. It's a chance for me to show off diamonds in the rough, undiscovered for days or decades, providing an alternative to the most mainstream productions. My ego wouldn't allow me to leave a challenge unconquered forever, and this channel to be left untouched when I can preach I had fun playing Painkiller, and it's nowhere near as bad as it looks on the surface. Add Resident Evil 3 Remake into that pile while you're at it. Someone's gonna find me sooner or later, and if my joy gets someone else to think R-Type 1's the greatest game of all time, then that's worth continuing the routine. I can't thank you enough for waiting a month until I could deliver quality commentary. It wouldn't be half as much fun sharing my triumphs without people to talk to or answer questions about the games they're interested in. A continuation of the Japanese arcade experience, if you will. It may not be the same as actually sitting around passing notes or writing hints on the cabinets, but it keeps the flames alive. Just like how I discovered new strategies in Frisky Tom almost 40 years later. There's an interesting topic to talk about in the future. I should clear Super Xevious Gump no Nazo to evaluate how fun it is without hundreds of nerds trying to solve its progression. Tower of Jiraga sure didn't hold up. There's a spicy take. But Xevious is more timeless. We shall see. As for how I'll handle playing the older Call of Duties, World at War to Black Ops 2 are live and thriving on the Plutonium client. They're on sale as of June 25th, 2023, although I'm going to leave buying them at your own discretion. In my opinion, the ones with private servers are still worth it. You'll have a great time if you buy Black Ops or Black Ops 2, but do not buy Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and Advanced Warfare. Those are infected with no private server easily accessible. One might wonder why I never let a game go even when the vast majority of people stop caring about it. It's called making a wondrous experience last and getting my money's worth out of a production. Like rewatching a film and finding new details. That's the whole reason many arcade games loop twice, or even endlessly in rare occasions. Gradius is not remotely over until you can max the difficulty out by beating it 3 times in one go. They're all built to last, and I didn't even need a battle pass. Just another loop of a great game. This is the part where I pack my bags and say, adios, amigo. It feels good to be back on my feet making videos again. Stay tuned, because next month, due to popular fan demand, we are reviving the MVS vs. AES series by murphing over the Metal Slug series and its version differences. You wanted it, you got it. You know a series is like when you get multiple comments about it. Until my fateful return, I wish you all peace and long life, folks. You'll be able to jam out to the tunes for the rest of the replay. This is Kyo, signing off.
主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家。伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家。伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家。伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家。伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家，伝説の戦士たちよ。主人家，主人家。伝説の戦士たちよ。